Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach, and I help parents stay calm, get calm, stay calm, and connect with their kids better. And that way they have more compliance and they can think clearer, set better limits with their kids, and just all around sort of enjoy parenting from that calm, peaceful state, right? That we all crave so much. So that's what we do on this podcast, as you all know, if you've been a long time listener. And if you're new, welcome to the podcast. Now, I'm going to talk today about a part of the brain called the task positive network and the default mode network. So that's going to sound a little confusing, and already you're like, wait, what? I'm going to be in a neuroscience class? Kinda, but not really. I want to talk about the kind of the yin yang or the seesaw between task attention, like paying attention to a task and doing tasks. And then when you are on task, your brain's kind of focused. And then we switch into sort of a default mode where we're in an active rest state. I want to talk about this because I think it's really helpful for you to understand what's going on with your kids when we give them a task and we want them to focus their attention, what is required to get them to focus, and then kind of how hard it is to stay in that focused state, and then how to create quality rest in your brain. Because I know as a parent, you probably, as a mom especially, you spend a lot of time focused on all sorts of tasks like time crunch and scheduling and figuring out who's got to be where and when are you going to cook dinner and how is everyone get their homework done. And, there's calendaring, and then there's like emails, and you're like, okay, I got to get this kid to this practice and they need these 5 things. And then if you have more than one kid, you're like, oh, and they need this, pumpkins for the pumpkin party or whatever, right? So there's just a lot going on all the time as a parent, and you're in task positive network kind of a lot if you're a parent. And then your brain goes into overload and you can't think straight and you're overwhelmed and you're like, you kind of like burn out and you are going into active rest mode. And sometimes the things we choose to do or the things we default to in order to rest our brains aren't high quality. And so even though you might be taking a break from doing all your thinking and all your tasks, you don't actually feel rejuvenated by that. So I'm going to explain why that's happening and how to create better quality downtime for you and how to help your kids and you get back on task when it's time. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Now, the reason why this came up for me is because a couple weeks ago, I did an episode on rethinking ADHD, and I talked about this book that I've read it a few times now. I got it a couple years ago, but it's called ADHD 2.0. And that book is the first time I was introduced to this concept of the brain, the neural network that seesaws or teeter-totters between on task, off task, right? Inattention, default attention. So like intentional attention and non-intentional attention. And I really liked it, and I wanted to talk about it on that episode a couple weeks ago, but like I said, it had got very dense and, I had a lot to talk about. So I wanted to come back and talk about it with you all. The other reason why I want to bring this up is because it came up in the Calm Mama Club during one of our sessions. We were in a meeting and I was talking about this concept, and then somebody brought up the fact that like their partner may be on their phone a lot, and like, what is that about? And so we started kind of talking about what the phone does and how it creates sort of artificial rest for us, artificial downtime, but then how it's really not quality and it's not great to model that, and but it becomes a pattern and a habit. So I started talking about this TPN and DMN and talking about it with my mamas, and they were like so fascinated. They're like, please send us articles about it. We want to read about it. And I was like, well, let's just do a podcast episode. So that's how we got here. So on this episode, here's what you can expect. I'm going to go deeper into teaching you about the attention, the task-focused attention network. Okay, so it's called task positive network. Your brain is positively attuned, paying attention to the task, and it's kind of focused. So I'm going to talk to you about the task positive network and the default mode network, what your brain does when it's not on task. What is it doing? So I want to give you some understanding about that. And then I want to give you some strategies about how to shift into tasks if you need to be shifting into getting stuff done. What can you do? And then also how to create better active rest for yourself. So isn't that cool? I really think you're going to love this episode. So let's get into it. Okay, so first I'm actually going to talk about the default mode because it is our default. It's like, this is what happens to our brains when we are not thinking about anything. When we're not on task, our mind is just like not thinking, right? That's it. It's in its default mode. In this period of time, we think of this as wakeful rest or active rest. Like your brain is at rest, but it's not asleep. It's just not thinking about anything. So that's kind of nice, right? It's like you can end up being lost in thought. You can, mind wander. Sometimes they call this, like in meditation, the monkey mind, where your mind's just flitting from one thing to another. That's an okay place to be. We actually do need our default mode network to be lit up at certain times. It's where we daydream and let our imaginations go free. And we can go down a little bit rabbit holes. It's actually the part of your brain that helps integrate what you've learned or an experience and take it from short-term memory into long-term memory. It's the thing that helps you relive the past, maybe reflect on some things that happened, and then also it helps you imagine the future. So it's not present-minded. It's very much in the past and very much in the future. And it helps us we start to reflect on other people and like kind of bigger picture thinking. So it's pretty great if you have some mastery or you've trained your brain to think about positive things. This part of our brain, like a toddler let loose in a toy store, it's going to go everywhere, like scattered all over the place. If you said to your toddler, like, you can play with any toy in this toy store, it'd be like, oh my God, like they're flitting around and playing with this and playing with that and be so exciting. And that's kind of what your brain can do. So we want to harness it a little bit and give our brain a focus, not necessarily a task, but a positive way to ruminate. Now, unchecked, the bad news is that because of our default sometimes is negative as a person, or our perspective is to fear-based and anxious and overthinking and over ruminating and over processing the past and, anticipating the future. And we can end up in a negative mindset when we are in the DMN. Some of the daydreaming can go too far, and instead of creating a happy, relaxed state, it can create a negative anguish state. And that's what we see if you are prone to anxiety or depression. You can kind of get stuck in these negative thought spirals. And that means that you're sort of stuck in your default mode network. Sometimes some of us will scroll on our phone or, watch short videos or whatever because we want to be released from the task part. We don't want to be thinking so hard, but we don't really trust our brain to help us go into a positive, free thinking state. So that's one of the powers of life coaching, actually, is we kind of change your default mindset to reflect on the positive, like changing your actual cognitive bias and your presets to look at what could be going right. What was great about the past? What is great about the future? It's why I talk a lot about, positive parenting vision and, worst case scenarioing, but then solving for our worst case scenario so we have more agency. The DMN, it can be a very positive place to be if we don't let it be the demon, right? The DMN. We want it to be able to be a place that feels really yummy and safe and fun. And I'm going to talk about how to get to that state of mind at the end of the podcast. So now let's talk about task-focused attention state, this task-positive network. It's pretty obvious what it is in the name, right? It's where your brain is very active when you are doing tasks that require your attention. your conscious attention, it's towards what you're doing in your actual task. You can kind of tune out what's on the outside and what's going on. You just are like focused on what is happening. This is a pretty cool state of mind. A lot of times it's called flow. And it's where you're doing like a task-oriented or processing sensory input, your short-term memories there, thinking abstractly about something in order to solve a problem. So like I said, a lot of parents are in task-positive network a lot of the day. And it's really can be very exhausting. It can be very difficult. When you look at a kid or a child with ADHD or a parent with an ADHD or someone with anxiety or someone with depression, and maybe it's you, and you have heard yourself say, or someone say, I can't even think straight. I can't even get anything done. I start this and then I'm over there and I do this and I'm flitting around all day and I don't really ever achieve anything. Like, what's happening? And that is probably because you aren't able to stay in task positive network, in TPN, long enough to achieve something. The brain, it does like being in flow. It does like being in this state of consciousness and attention, really focused attention. But it is also very easy to get distracted out of TPN because there's a lot of work. So we see this with kids, a lot of kids, especially kids with ADHD. It's very hard to get them into that focused place. We're also noticing as a society, and this is a quote from that book, ADHD 2.0, where it says, the authors, they say, the reason that many people are starting to look and act distracted as if they had ADHD is because fewer and fewer people are spending time in the task positive network. They're not spending enough time focusing on a single task. They're not sitting there long enough to get something done before they get distracted. So the TPN is like a muscle, and you need to teach it to stay on that track. It's hard. It's hard as a parent because here's some things that can pull you out of your task positive network. It can be boredom, right? You just get bored and you're like, this is boring. I don't want to do this anymore. And your brain starts to, kind of wander into another direction. Or you can get inputs from the environment that force your brain to shift out of the task. This is what happens when you have notifications on your phone. If your phone is dinging at you all day long, you are being told, by the external environment, that your task needs to stop because something else is supposed to get your attention. I have friends that I'm with and their phone is dinging all the time. All their group chats are dinging. All the news notifications are coming on. They have red bubbles on their phone, like little red notification dots with a circle with the number, and their number's just going up, ding, 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 ding. And it is very, very difficult to stay focused if you have external input. That's why one of the first things I do, I don't have any notifications. My phone doesn't ding the whole day, especially when I'm working. It's on do not disturb. And I actually have turned all my notifications off for every app. I barely even get phone notifications because I want to control my downtime. I want to control my task positive network. I want to be in charge of my mind, and I want to go use my phone when I'm ready and being intentional. I know that sounds extreme and maybe it is, but it also creates a lot of productivity. Right? Sometimes people are like, how do you do everything you do in a week? And it's like, well, I'm pretty focused when I'm focused. And when I'm not focused, I am in charge of how I spend my active, wakeful rest time. And I'd love to invite you to do that. You can do it too. Start with turning off your notifications and seeing how it feels. Now, not only as a parent do you get information from your phone, like your dinging and your email and all the things that come through, but you also have children. And they really are terrible for task positive network. They are interrupting your flow all the time. Yeah, you know this, right? You're reading a recipe, or you're trying to order something online, or you're looking up airplane flights, or who knows, you're registering someone for soccer. You're doing some task that's required of you, And mommy, can you do this? Can we do this? Can I have a snack? Can I go over here? Can you open the door? Can you button this? Can you button this? No, I don't want it. I want these different clothes for my doll. Can you change the clothes? The amount of input that children bring in, that's very frustrating. And the brain kind of gives up. It's like, forget it. Now, of course, we want to pay attention to our kids and all of those things. So we have to decide when we're not with our kids to create task positive network time, attention to task time. Now, of course, if you're fatigued, mentally overloaded, mentally fatigued, you're stressed, you will have trouble going into the TPN. So that's why we need to have quality rest, like quality rest with our brain, and then quality task time. So I'm a big fan of blocking my calendar, knowing when I'm supposed to be focused and on task. And sometimes I just call that flow time, where I want to be in like one thing, learning or doing something. And then other times where it's like rest time. And I actually block my calendar so it looks like that. Now with kids, I'm mostly going to be in DMN when they're around. I'm just in their world and distracted. But hopefully I can do task positive network by choosing that my child's story is my task and I pay attention as much as I can. Now, how toggling works is that our brain is designed to have, while rest is on, like active rest, the DMN is on, task positive network is off. So they are a seesaw. As one is on, the other is off. And you switch back and forth. We want to be able to hold each state for a longer period of time. And also we want to be in control. We want to be able to self-regulate what our brain is doing and what we're thinking about, or whether we're not doing any thinking. That's just kind of keeping yourself self-regulated. We talk about that a lot. It's not just your nervous system. It's not just your parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system and your adrenals. It's also what your brain is thinking about. That's also part of self-regulation, is being intentional in your thinking and your doing. Is this thinking time? Is this doing time? What am I doing? One interesting thing to note is that, like I said, with a typical neurotypical brain, the DMN is lit up. I'm resting my brain and my task positive network is down, and then it switches. And task positive is up and my default mode network is down. Now, with an ADHD brain, when their brain goes into task positive network, they've shown with fMRIs that the default mode network also lights up. That's one of the challenges for an ADHD brain itself, is that the default mode is so powerful and strong that it sort of shouts louder than the task positive network. It's very difficult for an ADHD brain to switch, to toggle and stay there. But you'll notice if an ADHD brain is able to get into task focus, like they're focused on chess or building Lego or playing guitar or drawing the picture or whatever it is that their brain loves to do, and they're not bored and they're in the present moment, they're in task positive network. Good luck getting them out. A little bit like a little kid, hard to get him in the bathtub and then hard to get him out of the bathtub. That's how it is a little bit with the ADHD brain. Hard to get him in to task positive network and then hard to get him out. So I just want you to have compassion and work with your kids when they are struggling and just kind of be like, yeah, no, it makes sense. This is hard for you. It's hard to stay focused and it's hard to shift into task. You can even say task positive network or attention focused task. How do you toggle back and forth? How can you get a little bit more, I want to use the word control. I mean, intentional control, having ability to get your brain to do what you want it to do. Of course, you can train your brain. It's a muscle. So we want to work on it. Here's the first part of any change at all in your life is noticing, paying attention, being aware. So the next time that you feel stuck in your default mode, you're ruminating, you're anxious, you can't think straight, you want to get some stuff done and you are overwhelmed, you're not able to get back onto task after you're on your phone, you're scrolling, just notice that. Notice that you're in default mode network and then focus on anything outside of your brain. Look out the window, find a bird. Look at the colors in the room, start counting them. Get your body involved. Stand up, move your legs, move your hands. One cool thing is to create a small doable task. If you can't get focused, this is why if you ever sit down to do something at your desk and you don't really start doing anything until you like cleaned your desk off, and then you're like, oh, I need to go get tea, and you do all this stuff. That's because your brain needs these little tiny tasks to kind of get it into, okay, we're shifting into task positive network. We're going to be getting stuff done. It needs a little win, like a couple little wins, and then it's able to stay in those wins. So that's good to know for your ADHD kid or a little kid. Just like, hey, all you have to do is start by getting your piece of paper out. That's it. Let's just see how far you get. And then put your name on the paper. That's all. That's all you got to do so far. So we're kind of breaking it down. Getting your body involved is super helpful when you're stuck in that rumination, when you're stuck in overthinking. Go for a walk, jump up and down, sense your breath, call a friend, walk around, yell, dance, play the piano, feed your dog, sing row, row, row your boat while you're standing on one leg. Kind of anything where you kind of shift out of that negative thought spiral. That's what I do when I teach you the pause break, right? Reset your body, reset your mind. That's all you're doing. You're just kind of intentionally harnessing the lost thoughts and pushing them into a specific direction. You're taking that default and you're giving it a little task. That's all you got to find your lost little brain, give it a task. You don't need to negative mindset, positive your mindset out of all your negative mindsets. That's a lot of effort. All you need to do is activate your thinking brain and you will naturally shift from those ruminating thoughts. You might have to do it over and over and over again because like I said, the brain is a muscle. It might be weak. This network might be weak. Your default network might be too high. Now, sometimes I've noticed some people are like task. They burn out. They want to go on their phone. The phone is basically become our default mode network. And there's some bummers about using your phone to soothe or calm yourself or to be in default mode, to quote unquote rest, active rest or wakeful rest. The problem is that it's not coming from inside of you. Yes, you're focused on something external, but it's being fed to you. So it's not really your wandering mind. It's more like someone's telling you, now focus on this. Let's think about this. If you go to Instagram, right, and you scroll through the feed and it's just like new thought. I like to think my own thoughts. I want to think about what I want to think about. I don't spend much time scrolling on the platforms because I actually find it extremely boring and tedious, but it's because I don't let my brain really engage. It's not interesting enough to me. I scroll for a second. I'm like, ugh, this is gross. And I just get off of it. It's not the place that I seek information and it doesn't rest my brain and it's not my default and I don't really use it. But it can feel like the easy way to reset. It is easy. It's just low quality active rest. It's not high quality active rest. So when you are able to shift into DMN, to do default mode network, without the internet, without a device, you start to daydream and mind wander in a little more free-flowy way. Now, of course, some of those mind wandering, some of your thoughts might be negative. That might be, okay, now I need to switch to some small task and try again. But when you are able to have active rest without going into a negative thought spiral or without going into your phone, you will learn a lot about yourself, which is super cool. So it increases self-awareness about you. What do you think about? What do you pay attention to? Sure, you have a monkey mind. It's scattered thoughts all over the place. What are they? Sometimes it's really helpful to just write out all your thoughts. What does your brain think about? Get to know yourself. Another thing about when you're in that mind wandering free flow time where you're not really thinking about anything and you're just allowing thoughts to come through, it actually can help you figure out what you've learned. Like I said, learn from prior events or integrate learning, kind of synthesize information, reflect on experiences. I actually really, one of my mind wandering things is to look at photos. I find it kind of relaxing and truly reset. And they're my photos of my family, not other people's photos that they posted on Instagram. They're my vacations, and I like to daydream about them and think about future vacations. Also, then you usually reflect positively on your experiences, and that's a kind of a fun little thing. When you are inside your own brain, it helps you become more creative. Highly creative people tend to have greater functional connectivity in their default mode. Their default mode is fun, is creative, is like, it's a fun place to be. I always think of my mind as a playground. I love to be in it, almost too much. But sometimes I like to be in task, and sometimes I like to be in free flow thinking. It's one of the reasons why I love reading fiction so much, because it gets me into a different world. It's not task positive network. I'm not really thinking about what I'm reading when I'm reading fiction. When I'm reading nonfiction, I'm task positive. Like, I'm reading Sapolsky's book called Behave, and it is like a college textbook. It's so intense. And so I'm really focused. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain's so tired. I might put it down, go for a walk, look outside, maybe, read, look at some photos, something like that. Now, I want to give you some strategies as we wrap up of how to activate your DMN a little bit more often. The idea here is to just notice when you have gaps in your day, such as in the checkout line or waiting for your kids to get out of school, like in the pickup line, maybe while you're there in the bath, or there's a lot of waiting around, I think, with kids. And when you would typically reach for your phone, that's a good gap. Yeah, I want you to be thinking about that. So make some time to do nothing every day. That's another thing. So when you are in a period of time where you don't have any plans or you don't have to be on duty, take a break every couple hours from your job to unfocus your brain and give it a chance to rest. Take a few minutes when you're in the grocery store line to daydream rather than scrolling your phone. Sort of be intentional about you're like, this is my non-thinking time, and I'm just going to see what comes up. I'm just going to daydream. You can give yourself a little prompt, let's think about the last time we laughed really hard or the last funny thing our kid said, something like that. Also, another strategy is to combine when you go for a walk or you do some sort of exercise, like you go on a hike or a walk, or you go, do a little workout or whatever. Instead of getting your headphones in and listening to music or listening to a podcast, although I want you to be listening to my podcast, but try out listening to nothing for the first 10 minutes of a walk. I recently learned about this from the actress Laura Linney to commit to listening to 10 minutes of Bach a day, the composer. And so I've been doing that. And I find that I want to go longer than 10 minutes. And while I'm listening to that music, my mind is just kind of wandering all around. And it's been really, really rejuvenating. I'm not listening to someone teach me something. I'm just allowing my brain to find out what it wants to think about. So I try to do without music. Sometimes don't bring my headphones at all or bring my phone at all, and just go for a walk and look around. I also really intentionally do spend time in my yard looking at nature. I don't have a big old woodsy yard. I just have a regular Southern California backyard. But there's some birds and, some flowers that change colors and things like that. So I do try to connect to nature, look at what, today's a cloudy day. Yesterday was blue. Yes, there was big cloud, little wispy clouds, or the green color of the greens, things like that. Now, I do want you to think about setting aside your digital devices and giving yourself that mind wandering mode. So turning off your notifications, kind of putting your phone. One of my friends, she puts her phone in a drawer when she's in her house. I find it very hard to do that. I do check my phone a lot. It's a little annoying. I'd like to check it less, but she does. And like, you don't hear from her, she doesn't answer you. She checks her phone a couple times a day and that's it. And the rest of her day is just very focused on what she wants to do. I think it's really admirable. Just picking, if you have a partner and you guys decide as a team, that your values are aligned where you want to have more mind wandering time or unfocused default mode time, you can make a decision like, hey, let's put our phones away for an hour. Let's not look at our phones during the bedtime routine. Let's not use our phones in the mornings for the first, check your phone and things like that. But then let's put it away for 30 minutes while we're getting the kids ready. You'll notice that you will get more done if you put your phone away. You'll actually be more present. You'll be calmer. You'll be better at setting limits, better at connection, because your mind is focused on caregiving at that time. And then don't worry about not doing anything. Sometimes we think we should be busy all the time, and it's okay for you to not be busy and to have windows of time. When my kids were little, I always noticed that I would kind of stop work or whatever activities I had going on, and maybe 30 minutes before pickup, there was not enough time to start something and then not enough time to get into anything. So I would just spend that time reading or just looking outside, zoning out a little bit. Sometimes I'd watch TV actually, but it would just be a free mind period of time because I knew once my kids got in my presence, I was going to be on task again, super high brain. And then by the end of the night, my brain was mush. So that, and so you can just do nothing. You don't have to fill every minute of your day. You can create natural windows where there's downtime and then figure out how you want to fill that. That doesn't involve scrolling on Instagram. All right. I hope this was interesting. I hope it was good for you to get some strategies for the values of why you want to shift from task to quality default mode, some strategies for how to do that. And then some compassion for your kids, understanding that they are in default mode all the time and it's challenging for them to get on task. And so you want to give them little tiny tasks to get them motivated, and then they'll usually shift into the gear. You don't have to clean up your whole room. Just clean these 5 items of clothing, put them in your drawer. Okay, great. Now do these 7 things and now do these 10 things. Okay, now you finish cleaning up and I'm going to come back in 5 minutes. So you kind of give that brain a little bit of task to chew on and break it down into some steps. Super, super helpful for kids and for us, to be honest. Okay. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And if you have any questions about this, please reach out. You can book a complimentary consultation with me at the Calm Mama coaching website. Or you can just join the club. The Calm Mama Club is open enrollment at all times. It's $30 a month and you get coaching with me once a week. We have a group program and we answer all sorts of questions about kids and child raising and the brain and moms and how to calm ourselves, all the things. Or you can work with me privately if groups aren't your thing. So reach out and let me know what tell me what's going on with your family. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a week filled with quality default mode network time with quality, active, and wakeful rest. Okay, I'll talk to you next time. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that again at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.